as homeschool moms, we need to remember that the end result of our homeschool is not a guaranteed. We have to work for it. And giving it anything other than our best, treating it like a hobby instead of the responsibility that it really is unacceptable. Hey guys, welcome and thanks for joining me today. If you are new to my channel, I'm a young homeschooling mom of 3. I have a first grader and a kindergartner this year and a toddler, and I am also a second generation homeschooler. And this channel is my outlet for all things homeschool. But today in particular, I want to talk about something that's kind of been on my mind ever since I got a comment from one of my viewers, just asking a question about how realistic it is to put aside hours for your homeschool, to really dedicate the morning or the afternoon to your homeschool at the expense of all else. And that kind of got me thinking on just a train of thought about how I feel like, especially online, homeschooling is being treated a lot like a hobby rather than a job. Now, I have been guilty of saying that this is my hobby here on this channel, and I do love homeschooling. It is a hobby for me in the fact that I really enjoy it. I love the research. I love the curriculum. I love, the organizing and the scheduling and all this stuff. But underlying, I don't actually really view this as a hobby. This is my job. This is my responsibility. This is something I have committed to. And so I really want to just discuss that a little bit with you guys today, talk about just my thoughts on why it's not a hobby, and then talk about a few specific things that I think are areas that we often see talked about, and why I disagree with them being talked about that way, how I see that as treating your homeschool like a hobby versus treating it like a job. I do have quite a few notes down here because I really did think things out. So I have 2 pages of notes. So if I look down or pause for a second, I just want to make sure I'm getting everything that I talked about. Okay. Like I said, I love homeschooling. It is a hobby in that I enjoy it, but it is not a hobby in that I take it very, very seriously. If I am going to take my children out of public school and say, nope, I am going to take the sole responsibility for their education, then I need to take that seriously. Like, I need to treat it like a job in some ways. Now, granted, homeschooling has a lot more flexibility than a job does in a lot of ways because you create the job for yourself to some ways. But there is a big responsibility hanging on it, guys. This is our kids' education. If we don't do it, nobody's going to. And so I think it's really, really important that we look through the lens of how would I treat a job when thinking about some aspects of homeschooling. Now, not in total. I don't want to go, way over the edge of being like, it's all like this because jobs can be a little bit more rigid. And like I said, homeschooling does have some flexibility. But I think another reason why talking about homeschooling like a hobby rather than like a serious profession, that's the word I'm looking for, is that it's not fair to new homeschooling moms. It's not fair to them because if a mom's coming in who has no experience in homeschooling and she's just seeing this as this like amazing thing that we all enjoy and we get into, and then she comes in with these unrealistic expectations of this is going to be fun, this is going to be enjoyable all the way through, this is going to be easy, you can just make it work for you. And then it comes down to it, it's hard work. I don't feel like that's a good representation to give people who are interested in homeschooling either. I think there's a lot involved. And yes, it is very rewarding. And yes, there are fun things, but there's also just a lot of work involved. Rewarding, yes. Easy, no. And on top of that, this hobby mindset, when we're talking about homeschooling, can really cause people who are looking at homeschooling from the outside to undervalue what we're doing. I am not just indulging my hobby all day while my husband works. Like, I am taking the role of an educator in my child's life. And that is my job. I am parenting and I am educating. And so, no, I'm not just bumming it at home doing what I want to do, which happens to be homeschooling. I think that I am responsible to give my children a good education, and I'm taking that extremely seriously. And so I think all these things, both for the moms in homeschooling, the moms coming into homeschooling, people on the outside looking, when we discuss this in hobbyesque terms, it's not fair. It's not accurate. And so I think it's really important that we consider homeschooling as a job. And what does that mean? Now, before I jump into a few specific things, I just want to say that this is not about your homeschool style or how you want to homeschool. It's not. This conversation is not about our methods or our styles or any of that. This is about how you view your role in homeschooling and your job in homeschooling. That's different. We can have completely different styles, completely different schedules, completely different goals in our homeschool. But we can still both agree that this is my job. This is what I've committed to, and I have a responsibility to it. And there are some things that I need to be doing in this role and some ways that I need to be taking it seriously. And so that's more what this conversation is about. It's kind of a rant. And so I'm sorry if I get a little passionate here or if I seem a little overboard. I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I do think we need to take it seriously. Like, it is not all fun and games, and it is sometimes presented that way. It's either sometimes presented as this like beautiful, wonderful, always easy, always like child-parent relationship moments, or as Like, just make it whatever you want, go with the flow. And I'm like, yes, there are those. There are child-parent relationships developing. There are beautiful moments. There are ways that you can make it your own and be flexible, but it's not all that. There's just a lot of work involved as well. It's hard sometimes. And I think that needs to be represented. So I have a couple of areas that I want to talk about in regards to how I see homeschool talked about versus how I would perceive like a job role. So let's just jump in. Okay, so this is where this whole kind of thought got sparked. This whole video of thought got sparked for me. So, like I said, one of you guys asked, how realistic is it to dedicate, and I don't remember what part of the day, but I'm just going to say, like, my entire morning to homeschool, to the exclusion of all else. How realistic is it really just to say, this is what I'm doing during this time? And I responded, I think it's extremely realistic. If you think about it in terms of a job, again, you have hours. And everything else gets scheduled around those hours. You don't have hours and then be like, well, I really want to see a friend, so I'll just, you know, run out of my job here, go see a friend, and then come back. Not unless you have a really like flexible job. Most jobs, I was a waitress for quite a while. You have hours. I'm there from here to here. I don't get to go unless it's my lunch break. I am committed to this time, and I schedule my doctor's appointments. I schedule my friends. I schedule all my interests and hobbies and everything else outside of that time. This time is dedicated to this alone. And I do not think it's unrealistic to expect that for homeschool as well. For us, we dedicate our mornings until we finish, and that's, normally around 12 to 1, just depending, with lunch in between and if we have anything after lunch. And I fully expect that when I schedule my appointments, when I schedule my friendships, when I schedule play dates for the kids, that we're going to schedule those outside. Now, every now and then there's an exception. Homeschooling is flexible, and I do value the flexibility in it. So I'm not going to say like rigidly you can never schedule something inside that. But I think if we treat it like, we can just do it whenever, you will lose a lot in your homeschool because schedules are actually valuable things. And if you do not have a dedicated time for your homeschool, it just kind of laxes off. Like, you will miss so much that you want to do and that you could do within your homeschool by just having too much flexibility. There is such a thing as too much flexibility. And so I firmly believe, and this is my opinion, that in our homeschooling world, we should be seeing more people say, like, it is really important to dedicate a chunk of time. Now, whatever chunk of time that is for you, and maybe it's mornings on Thursdays and it's afternoons on Wednesdays. I'm not saying it has to be the same every single day, but did you have an expectation that this chunk of time during your day is exclusively for your homeschool? And that you can work with that. Now, there are exceptions, right? There may be a doctor put you with that. You absolutely can't schedule any other time of day. And so there are those. Just like with a job, every now and then you do have to take PTO to do something else. Or you do have to swap your shift or trade with somebody else. Like, there are times that you need to flex that. But the expectation in my mind is that we dedicate our mornings to homeschool. And when I schedule things, I schedule around that. I also just think, like, we have taken the responsibility of saying, I'm not going to give this to the public school. I'm going to take it away from that teacher and take it on myself. How would you feel if you had a teacher for your child in the public school who's like, you know what, I'm going to be here tomorrow, but in the middle of school, I'm just going to take a break for a while and we're just not going to get done what we need to get done. Or I'll come back later and do it. Like, we would be upset if our teachers were treating this casually instead of the expectation that, no, they are going to dedicate a certain amount of time in the day to our children. And so I don't think it's fair to expect any less of ourselves. Homeschool is flexible. I've said that. But there is a measure of scaffolding needed. And you can't just pick it up and drop it when you feel like it. You need to have some expectations for yourself and your kids. It will be so much easier on your kids if they also know what to expect. Like, this is for us because, like, if I just don't have any time planned and I just know I'll homeschool today, but I don't have any idea of when or any approach or schedule at all, like, that's terrible for me, but that's also terrible for your kids. They just never know what to expect. Kids need to know what to expect so they can work with you and make your job easier. Okay, enough on the hours, but I think that's a big one. Another one is, what about when things are hard? Now, I want to be careful in this because everybody has different stages of life. Everybody has different challenges they meet up. And there are some things that come in life that absolutely throw you for a loop and everything goes off for a while, or you have to take time off for. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't occur. I'm just saying you're having a hard day. Okay. So last week was a really hard week for me. The first 3 days were insanely hard. Monday, I woke up and I felt like a truck had hit me. Like, I couldn't wake up. I was so tired. I was pulling myself through the day, and it took till like afternoon for me to get out of that. Tuesday, what was that? Tuesday was, Tuesday I felt okay, but my patience was like a hair trigger, guys. I had such a hard time with myself and homeschooling that day. It was just, I was just like, it was really hard. I didn't know why, but I was just on edge. And then Wednesday, I had a anxiety attack, I guess. I've dealt with anxiety, especially postpartum and stuff. And I know what it's like to be just almost unable to function during the day because of anxiety. And this was the worst I've had it in quite some time since my last postpartum, I think. It was all morning until like 10:30, 11. I was just I was just making myself do the motions of the day. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. There are times when you have a hard day and you just have to make yourself do the motions of the day because it's your job. If it's your hobby, you just put it down. If it's your job, you do it anyway. Now, I want to say that on days like this, we may get absolutely nothing done that's productive. My kids may not remember a thing. I may not have felt like we made any progress whatsoever. But I'll tell you one thing, your kids will have seen you do something hard because you were dedicated to it. They will have seen that you valued their education above how you were feeling. They will learn from you that they can do things that are hard, that just how they are feeling does not dictate what value things have, and that their education has more value than how you feel. I feel that that's important. Now, yes, there are days when you are sick and you just can't do it, or days when, like I said, some things come up and it just throws your whole week, your month for a loop, or just like a terrible day because you were just like, there are moments, and I don't want to judge people for taking time off when they need to. Homeschool does has the flexibility, but I think we all come into those hard days, and I don't think the advice that people need to be hearing is like, when you're having a hard day, just take it easy, just do a light day. Now, there are days when you need to do a light day, but I would say when you're having a hard day, do the hard things so that your kids can see you doing the hard thing. Do the hard thing so that your kids see you valuing their education. Do the hard thing because you value the education about how you're feeling. And so there is grace and there is a balance, but I would say often I just have to push through. I just have to do it. And sometimes it feels really worthless. Like, man, I don't know if they got anything out of that. Like, that was just a frustrating session and me trying to teach her to read, but we did it. Now, I shouldn't just be frustrated, but there are times. Okay, another thing that I think is missing sometimes, and I don't want to be like across the board, but I do think that in our homeschool, we need to be evaluating and assessing where our children are at. And this is one that's kind of up for debate. In some circles, you'll see people be like, yeah, we need to do evaluates. And I'm not saying formal testing. You can do this in many different ways. But some people are like, we can evaluate, assess, keep an eye on where your kids are at. Some people, there's more of the mindset of like, you can't ever be behind. Don't compare your kids to each other. And I'm not saying compare your kids to each other because my kids are wildly different. One of my children was very advanced and one is really on par. And I'm not comparing where they are to each other, but I am aware where each one is. And I am aware if we come up across something that we're not passing or that I really feel like we should be able to do, then I'm aware of that. And I think it's important that we're taking steps to keep eyes on where our kids are at. I have a sheet of expectations for different grades. What is the basic expectation for first grade? Now, I'm not making my child, like, if she didn't match every expectation that that's not a big deal. But I do in the beginning of the year and the end of the year go through and highlight with different colors where she started and where she ended, just so I can see the progress, I can see the growth, I can see the things that she's really excelling in, I can see the things that maybe, okay, just keep an eye on that. And it's not a big deal. But I have eyes on it. I know what's going on. And in our jobs, we do the same thing. We evaluate and assess. We assess ourselves. We have reviews from our bosses, or if we are a boss, we give reviews to other people. We have peer reviews. We have to assess our job and where we're at. We have to notice if we're doing a good job or not, or you're likely to lose your job. Like if you take something seriously, then you don't ignore it when there's potential problems. You would look at it and go, is that a potential problem? Okay, yes, no. And I mean, assess ourselves as homeschool teachers too, right? Like in a job where you have a performance review, you are assessed. Now, I don't have anybody over me assessing me, but I can look at myself and say, okay, where am I needing to change as a teacher? And so I think it's good to have eyes on where everything is. And I think that's something that we don't do that with a hobby. With a hobby, it doesn't matter. You progress at the rate you want to progress. If things aren't going good, you change. We don't have to do that anyway. It's all optional. When it's a job, you need to keep eyes on where your students are at and where yourself is at so that things continue moving forward in a healthy manner. All right. Another one that is a big debate is scheduling. Now, I want to be careful because I don't want to tell anybody that they have to schedule or how they should schedule, but I do think schedules are good. I think it's become like a bad word almost for homeschooling. Like you schedule, but like flexibility. And I'm like, yes, homeschooling is beautiful. It has so much flexibility within certain boundaries. And scheduling is just one of those things that it's like the first one where you set hours for yourself that you're going to dedicate a certain amount of time in your day to homeschooling. Scheduling is like that. Scheduling gives you scaffolding so that you do the same thing. Like if I don't have any sort of schedule and I just fly by the seat of my pants, we lose so much time in our homeschool day by me just trying to figure out what's next. Now, I'm not saying rigid scheduling, like from 7 to 7:05 we're doing this, and from 7:05 to 7:10 we're doing this, and from 7:10 to 7:15 or 7:20 we're doing this. That's not what I'm talking about. But give yourself some sort of scaffolding. And if you prefer to think of it as a rhythm or a scaffolding or a flow, like I don't care if you use the word schedule, but have some sort of idea of how your day is expected to go. In a job, we do this. We have ideas. We have we get in and we check in, right? That's the first thing in your schedule. You get into your computer if you have a computer job or not, and you log into your computer. You open up these things. You have kind of an order that you start your day. Like as a waitress, I got in, I checked in. I went and found my apron. I set this part of my station up. I would check these things to see if I needed to refill things. I would go clean it. Like there was an order that I did every day. And no, I didn't have to, but if I did that, I was super efficient. I could make it through. We got everything done on time and I wasn't flustered or hurried or overwhelmed. I knew what to expect. I knew what to look for. And your kids also kind of can get into that rhythm. If you have a schedule, they know what to expect, what to look for, what's next, and they can help you. If a kid doesn't know, then you're going to constantly have to be herding them into the next thing versus if they just expect the next step in the day, they can help flow into that smoothly. They're working with you rather than you having to pull them every direction. And so every schedule is going to look different. Every home, every way that we do this is different. And so I'm not trying to tell somebody how to do it. I'm just saying if you haven't considered putting some sort of schedule in place that you do the same thing or the same kind of thing, or you have an idea of what's next in your homeschool day, I really think that's important to keep us on track and to keep us going smoothly. And just, again, if it's not a hobby, it's not optional. It's not something that we can just do whatever we feel like. We need to have a plan. And with that, you need goals. Now, again, my goals are going to look vastly different from your goals, but no job has no goals. Like there is not a job that is completely goalless, right? You don't fly by the seat of your pants. Now, there are jobs that have more flexible goals and jobs that have very much rigid goals. But even in waitressing, like my goal was getting the food to the table. Now, that is a very basic goal, granted, and there were lots of mini goals within that. But if I did not get the food to the table and serve in a way to make the customer happy, then I failed my job. And how do you know if you're failing your job if you don't have goals? Like, this is the problem. I think when people don't have goals in their homeschool, like, you have nothing to gauge if you're failing or if you're succeeding. Like, and I'm not just saying if you're failing, but if you're succeeding, like, enjoy the fact that you're succeeding. Like, it's awesome to meet a goal in your homeschool. Now, again, these goals are varied and vast, and they don't have to be that we hit this milestone at this time. But you need to know the result that you're moving toward so that you can plan how to get there. And so that you can follow those steps so that there is something to assess. If you have no goal, how are you going to assess if you're on target? And like I said, even in one so trivial as waitressing, there's goals. And I think it's irresponsible to treat homeschooling less than we would our job. So if I have goals as a waitress, why would I put my homeschool below that bar of a very basic job and be like, well, I don't need to have any goals? Like, I don't know, maybe I need to take my children's education no less seriously than I took waitressing. I should be taking it far more seriously. The ramifications of my child and me failing their education is so much bigger than me not making a customer happy. Like, I know that that it's way more complex than I'm making it. That this is, it's not as simple as like, oh, well, just compare it to waitressing and make it this. I understand that, but I do think that there is a danger with a lot of social media and a lot of the way things are presented by influencers who want to make this look good and easy, and that it can just be so custom to you. And it can be. That's the thing. They take something that's true and make it so diluted that then you will fail. And so I think if you don't want to fail in your homeschool, you need to have things set in place that help you not fail. If you want to take it seriously, then do. And if you're going to take it seriously as a job rather than a hobby, you need to have a goal in place for what constitutes success. And success for every single one of us is going to be different. For some, that's just a love of learning. For some, that's, Harvard. For some, that is by grade 2, I want these things. For some, it's like, I just want these things by the end of our homeschool. And I'm not trying to tell you what yours are, but if you have not thought down and considered what do you want your children to get out of homeschool, then you will not give it to them because you will not be taking the steps necessary to get there. Okay. I'm off my hobby course, guys. Those are what I was thinking. I think it's a shame that people are taking the beauty of homeschool flexibility, because there's so much flexibility in homeschool, and taking that and making that what homeschool is about. Because homeschool has so much flexibility, it's wonderful, but that is not what my homeschool is about. And while I could treat it like a hobby in that the flexibility is everywhere and it doesn't really matter, I don't believe that. I do believe that it matters. I do believe that we should taking it as seriously, that we should be considering this our profession, our job, that our role is an educator, not just a facilitator. I'm not just a homeschool mom. I am an educator for my children. Okay, enough of that. I have probably ranted long enough, so I'm done with that. But you can check out this video here if you're interested in seeing more of my opinions on specifically popular homeschool advice that you see online that I really think is doing a disservice to new homeschool moms.